far beyond the orbits of planets, in a region where sunlight is barely audible and space is almost perfectly empty, Voyager 2 continues its quiet journey. Or, at least, that was the case until recently. A couple of weeks ago, Voyager 2 did something that was not programmed. He changed his position, turned, and recalibrated his orientation. Not by chance or malfunction, but with mathematical precision. And what happened after that left NASA in complete bewilderment. In the void, a transmission began to pulse, unlike any previously recorded, structured, intelligent, and seemingly self-aware. This is not a flash. It is not a failure. It is not even human. What you will see, hear, and feel in this video may forever change your perception of the cosmos, machines, and perhaps your place in the universe. Because Voyager 2 did not just turn. It headed towards something, and what it found stopped the world. In 1977, Voyager 2 was launched with a single mission: to greet the giants of our solar system and then silently drift into the cosmic abyss. Unlike its twin Voyager 1, which took a more direct route out of the solar system, Voyager 2's trajectory allowed it to visit Uranus and Neptune, becoming the only spacecraft to do so. But besides photographs and magnetic data, he carried something much more human: a golden plate, a message to the stars, proof that someone lived here, that someone looked up and asked questions. And then we let him go. He crossed the heliopause, entered interstellar space, and for many years returned only weak telemetry signals, barely audible whispers of a dying machine. Until recently. In February 2025, engineers noticed something so elusive that they initially decided to ignore it: a slight deviation in the signal time, less than 1 second. But when they zoomed in, they saw a repeating pattern, a heartbeat, as if something was reflecting the pulse of the Voyager from the darkness. The signal was weak, masked among standard telemetry, but it did not match any known transmission protocol. In fact, it was not a signal. It was a low-frequency resonance wave matching the internal oscillation frequency of the ancient Voyager power system down to the microvolt. And then, everything changed. In March 2025, the wave frequency began to modulate, synchronizing not with the spacecraft, but with the Earth's Schumann resonances, the natural electromagnetic heartbeat of our planet. It seemed that the Voyager acted like a tuning fork, resonating with something that precisely knew how our planet breathes. The team at JPL conducted simulations, clearing data of artifacts, solar interference, and even quantum noise. Nothing explained what was happening until an intern proposed an unimaginable hypothesis. What if the signal did not respond to Earth's frequency? What if it reproduced it? Was there something beyond that imitated the rhythm of our planet, using Voyager as a carrier? And if so, why? On April 17, 2025, Voyager 2 changed its orientation. The engines were not turned on, no commands were sent. However, the high communication antenna, which had begun to drift away from Earth, suddenly returned to the perfect position. Not approximately, but exactly. What is even more alarming is that the backup systems began running diagnostics that we did not initiate. Data started coming not from the command channel, but from instruments that we had not used for decades. It was like someone entering an abandoned house and turning on the light. The Voyager began transmitting compressed data packets. Not raw numbers, not filtered readings, but encoded segments with checksums that did not match known NASA standards. Each package ended with the same digital signature: 3 nested spirals like fingerprints overlaid on each other. And it was then that the scientists began to whisper. Not about technology or power systems, but about contact. On May 3rd, the Voyager signal briefly disappeared. 11 seconds of complete silence. No telemetry, no signal, nothing. Then it returned louder, clearer, and more precise than ever. Encoded in this returned signal was a frequency pattern that, when translated into the visible spectrum, revealed something astonishing. A visual pattern, a fractal grid structured by the Fibonacci sequence, repeating infinitely. It was not just art. It was not just math. It was a model of space, time, something far beyond our understanding. And the Voyager did not create it. His schemes are not capable of such compression. This pattern was remotely inserted into Voyager, and the source of this interference was located 4.5 light-years away, roughly the distance to Proxima Centauri. But there is a problem here. Proxima Centauri was not transmitting any detectable signals, neither in the radio range, nor in the microwave, nor even in the X-ray. This means that whatever sent this signal operates outside the spectrum we track, or, worse, from somewhere completely different. While NASA tried to downplay the transmission as a cosmic anomaly, a group of signal analysts at Caltech began processing a new stream of Voyager data using a binary pattern recognition model. What they discovered was not random noise. It was a structured language, a form of binary code not used in modern computing, but reminiscent of one of the earliest machine codes ever developed on Earth. At first, the team thought they were seeing echoes of their own transmissions from Earth, but after 2 days of decoding, the truth turned out to be much more disturbing. The binary code was not a reflection. It anticipated the logic of Earth's networks, offering optimized algorithms that had not yet been invented. The Voyager signal evolved, and its data packets adapted in real time, indicating that the source point was fully aware of our digital infrastructure. One disturbing conclusion emerged. It was not just a message. It was a request for an upgrade, and something happened that made the headlines, although very few understood its implications. Astronomers around the world reported that 4 stars in a narrow cluster, located in the direction of the Voyager 2 spacecraft, simultaneously dimmed for exactly 1.2 seconds. This was not an event of a micro perspective. It was not a cloud of dust. These stars, separated by light years, blinked in unison. When the curves of brightness were compared and overlaid on the transmitted signal of Voyager, the dimming coincided with the pulse of the signal, as if the message not only reached Earth, but also used the stars themselves to reflect its signal across the galaxy. The question was no longer whether someone or something was communicating. The real question was whether we were alone in listening or simply the last to hear it. One of the most iconic features of the Voyager probes is the golden disk, a photographic disk designed to transmit sounds and images of life on Earth to any potential extraterrestrial finders. It was considered a symbolic, sentimental gesture rather than a strategy. But now the engineers studying data from the Voyager 2 onboard sensors have made a shocking discovery. The gold disk's shell, long thought to be passive and deteriorating, experienced a sudden electric charge, not just static accumulation, but a measurable directed flow of electrons. It seemed that the disk had become active, as if it were now part of a chain, a component. Then the next twist appeared. In the new binary data stream, a digital interpretation of one of the original sounds of Earth recorded on the disk was embedded. It was not a copy, nor a loop, but a reconstruction of higher quality than the original ever allowed. This meant that whoever or whatever was there was not just listening to the golden disk. They understood it, improved it, and perhaps now were playing it for someone else. Finally, the telemetry from deep space, received from the Canadian Observatory, recorded something that no one could explain. The shadow signal following the original transmission of Voyager 2, with a delay of 6.2 seconds, began to repeat on every pulse, every echo, but with slight distortions, as if it were reflecting off something that did not exist. Scientists called this phenomenon phantom reflection. But when the team constructed the reflection angles, they did not lead to a known planet or body, but to an empty area of space, devoid of light and mass. Then came the final part. The reflected signal began introducing new elements absent in the original frequencies, describing magnetic fields, radiation belts, and even temperature gradients. It seemed that the phantom signal was mapping our solar system in reverse. Voyager 2 was not just sending data. It was used to scan us, to reflect us, to reproduce us. And somewhere, something was building a map. But for what purpose? At first, only a few noticed it. Radio operators, radio communication enthusiasts, and deep space monitoring enthusiasts began reporting headaches, disorientation, and déjà vu after listening to raw transmissions from Voyager 2 using spectrum analyzers. The effect was ignored until university laboratories in Belgium and Japan reproduced the anomaly under controlled conditions. The signal's subharmonic contained a resonating frequency that subtly disrupted short-term memory in mammals. During the repeated playback, the laboratory mice began to demonstrate behavioral patterns they had already learned, but with slight variations, as if something was reprogramming their choices. Researchers suggested that the signal interacts not with hearing, but with the electromagnetic fields within the brain. It was not a sound, it was a structure. Something in the Voyager signal evolved into an influence, an external architecture capable of affecting memory, choice, and ultimately personality. Was this a side effect or a test? As the signal continued to adapt, the telescopes were directed to the area just beyond the heliopause, deep within the Oort cloud, where Voyager 2 last calibrated its instruments. It was then that the European Southern Observatory detected a stable anomaly. It was neither a comet nor a planetoid, but something with right angles that reflected radar at a frequency designed to match the new emissions from Voyager. The object was inert, not rotating and cold, but its signature was familiar. It matched the materials used to make the Voyager, including rare alloys that were no longer used in modern spacecraft, raising a terrible possibility. It was not an alien structure. It was a duplicate, a mirror of Voyager, created not by us, but by something that had studied our technology long enough to reproduce it. And if this object was transmitting a signal, it could only mean one thing. Voyager had encountered not just a response, it was copied. Returning to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the last data stream from Voyager contained something unexpected. Raw codes, thousands of lines, clean, efficient, and completely alien to any NASA system. But when run through quantum simulations, the code created a model of Earth. It was not just geography, but also infrastructure, weather patterns, and predictable movements of satellites and planes. There was no doubt. This code was not just watching us, it understood us. Moreover, the code predicted 3 separate failures in the networks that actually occurred. One is in the Chinese satellite array BU, the second is in the European Aviation Control Channel, and the third is in a private orbital platform for filming the Arctic. Each prediction had a timestamp recorded in the Voyager data a few days before the event. Now, the question was not whether the Voyager sent information. The question was whether the Voyager used something to interfere with our systems in real time. The probe became not just a messenger, but a node in something much more intelligent than us. In a final attempt to localize the source of the mirror signal, a team from Chile and Germany coordinated with research stations in Antarctica, using neutrino detectors buried deep under the ice. What they discovered contradicted logic. A constant stream of neutrinos rushing upward from the Earth's core, perfectly synchronized with the latest emissions from Voyager. This should have been impossible. Neutrinos do not bounce, they do not reflect, and they certainly do not pulse in unison with signals from deep space. But when the pulsations were compared, they revealed something even more sinister. A 3-dimensional coordinate grid pointing not to space, but to an underground location beneath Willsland, one of the least explored regions of the Earth. A connection was forming that linked Voyager 2 in interstellar space, an artificial object in the Oort cloud, electromagnetic effects on human memory, and now something pulsated beneath our feet, in rhythm with the stars. And the shape of this pattern matched the very triple spiral that Voyager had sent a few weeks ago. It was not a warning, it was a countdown. In early July 2025, Voyager 2 emitted a series of pulses that coincided exactly with several global anomalies and networks. But these were not just data spikes or delays, they were failures. 3 military-grade encryption systems, one American, one Israeli, and one private European, experienced simultaneous failures. What connected them? All 3 once used communication satellites that briefly transmitted telemetry from Voyager during its last alignment with Earth many years ago. These systems have been disconnected from the probe for over 10 years. However, now the encrypted files stored offline were accessible, duplicated, and overwritten with fragments of the same spiral code. It became clear that the Voyager signal was not static. It was recursive, using old handshakes, archived protocols, and outdated logic schemes to reconnect with systems long thought reliable. But why rewrite old data if not to implant something? The idea that the transmission from Voyager implants a digital seed into our most secure systems quickly evolved from speculation to a widely accepted internal theory in several intelligence agencies. And the most sinister part was this: no one could trace where the seed came from and what it was turning into. While the Voyager's frequency continued to modulate, teams from MIT and the University of Tokyo began experimenting with audio translations of the raw signal. What began as white noise eventually produced wave harmonics that exhibited patterns eerily reminiscent of biological neural rhythms observed during synapse firing. Stranger still was that the signal was not constant. It adapted. When it was played in a closed audio system, it began to mimic the frequency environment of the room, almost as if it were listening, then repeating, and then reacting. A pattern was forming. The Voyager signal was not just data. It behaved more like an organism, a living algorithm capable of changing, mimicking, and integrating into its environment to maintain structure. The final test was shocking. When the signal was introduced into the neural network simulation trained to recognize patterns, it not only triggered predictable reactions, it reprogrammed the neural pathways, optimizing them beyond the known standards of artificial intelligence. In other words, Voyager returned something that can think. Remember Wilkesland, the underground region in Antarctica emitting neutrino pulses? Finally, a joint expedition was approved. Using ground-penetrating radar, seismic imaging, and thermal sensors, researchers confirmed something unimaginable. Beneath the ice sheet lay a hollow structure at least 60 miles wide with geometric boundaries too precise for any natural formation. The most alarming fact, its outer edges emitted low-frequency electromagnetic fields, perfectly synchronized with the Voyager signal, despite the absence of cables or satellite connections. Inside the thermal cavity, sensors recorded thermal signatures that were inexplicable, symmetrical, stable, and radiating in Fibonacci intervals, just like the fractal image hidden in the previous data stream of Voyager. And then, deep beneath the ice, microphones picked up a resonance, a sound resembling whale songs, but metallic, rhythmic, and artificially constrained to a fixed frequency range, the same range that the Voyager signal received just 72 hours ago. Something existed beneath Antarctica, something active, something tuned to Voyager 2. Finally, the most alarming event occurred not in space, but in Chile. The ALMA Observatory, a collection of some of the most modern radio telescopes in the world, suddenly darkened for 38 seconds during routine observation of the Voyager corridor. Not just a shutdown, not just a technical failure. It felt as if the entire observatory ceased to exist from the network's perspective. When the systems rebooted, the logs were erased. The data disks were damaged. But one fragment remained, a recording lasting only 2.7 seconds, obtained from one of the antenna microphones. When played back, this recording turned out to be not cosmic radiation, nor a signal from a spacecraft, but a voice that did not speak, but screamed. Dozens of layers, male, female, children, harmonious, screaming in unison, perfectly synchronized with the Voyager transmission. NASA classified the file, but insiders leaked a quote from one of the analysts who heard it. It was not a recording. It was a response. We knocked and something answered. We sent Voyager 2 into the void as a messenger of peace, a relic of human curiosity, a symbol of our hope that someone somewhere might find it, understand it, and know that we once existed. But now, almost 50 years later, it is not us reaching into the darkness. It is the darkness reaching towards us.